What's going on, y'all? Today we are going to be ranking every single UFC division based on the results throughout 2026 so far. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. This is not my overall opinion about every single division. If anything, a lot of the divisions that I rank towards the bottom half of this list, I actually do like overall. It's just not a lot has happened in most of these divisions. All right, so now that I got that point across, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. All right, so at number 8, shouldn't come as a shock to anybody, but I got the heavyweights, right? Like, most heavyweights are trash. Like, if Gilton Almeida and Tai Tuivasa were considered ranked heavyweights at one point, there's not much to talk about for this division that is positive. Now, that being said, though, there are some bright spots. We just watched Josh Hockett and Curtis Blades fight, as well as Waldo Cortez Acosta knock out Derek Lewis. Like, there are some bright spots to talk about, but for the most part, this division is complete buns, which is why I have this at the bottom of my list. Now, at number 7, I got welterweight. Now, I want to say that overall, I would put welterweight as like number 2 or 3, maybe even number 1, depending on the day. But the problem with welterweight right now is not a lot has happened, right? And there's no news regarding Islam Makhachev because he's injured his hand. And a lot of the top 5 guys that are looking for a title shot or a title elimination bout, they've kind of been frozen out. So it's very interesting as to who's going to get the next title shot, but we don't even know when that's going to happen. But most likely, though, welterweight will get good around the summer to fall time of the year. But for now, because not a lot has happened other than JDM versus Carlos Prates being announced, like, I got to put this at number 7. But I do expect it to get a lot better moving on throughout the rest of the year. Now, at number 6, I got flyweight, very similar to the welterweights, although I don't think it's anywhere near as severe. It's just that not a lot has happened in this division, all right? But we at least know when the next title fight is taking place between Joshua Van and Tatsuro Taira. And Manel Cap, he should be getting a title shot, but, he's still got a matchup with Kyoji or Gucci. I would say there's slightly more activity in this division, but not by much, all right, which is why I have it at number 6. But like welterweight, I expect things to start picking up towards the later half of 2026. Now, at number 5, though, I got Bantamweight. We had decent activity in Bantamweight. We watched Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. We watched Umar Nurmagomedov versus Davidson Figueiredo. And now we're getting Song Yadong versus Davidson Figueiredo in May. And Sean O'Malley versus Ayman Zahabi at the White House. But the main issue with Bantamweight I have right now is that we don't know when the next title fight's taking place. Right? I'm not exactly sure what is wrong with Pilter Yan. I think he injured his hand, although I'm not too sure about that. But either way, though, it's most likely going to be more active in the second half of the year. But because Pilter Yan is out due to injury that I'm not really sure about, like, I'm not expecting much to be heard from at Bantamweight until, like, maybe September or October of 2026. Now, at number 4, I got light heavyweight. Now, putting light heavyweight this high up, it doesn't mean that I like light heavyweight more than divisions like welterweight and flyweight. But the reason I put them this high up on my list right now is because a lot has happened at light heavyweight over the course of the first 4 months. We watched the Carlos Ulberg unfortunately flatline Yuri Prohaska. Paulo Costa's now in the mix for a title shot at 205. We even got Bogdan Gushkov versus Jan Blachowicz 2 get booked for the Newark, New Jersey card. But the issue I have with light heavyweight, though, is it feels like Pereira's shadow is just clouding over the division. Now, it has kind of lifted up because Carlos Ulberg won the belt, and it does feel like it could be an interesting matchup down the line if Pereira ever decides to move back down to 205. But I feel like this division is going to be in Pereira's shadow for a very long time because, again, Olberg literally ruptured his ACL in the middle of his fight with Yuri Prohaska, and the rest of the top 5 guys, Alex Pereira has already beaten. So for that reason, I have to put light heavyweight at number 4, and I think it's going to get worse moving on in the later half of 2026. At number 3, I got the middleweights. We had decent activity in middleweight. We watched Sean Strickland versus Fluffy Hernandez, Joe Pyfer versus Israel Adesanya, and we're even getting Chimaev fighting, which I did not think we were going to get any news regarding Chimaev's activity or fight schedule, but we're having Chimaev fight Sean Strickland in Newark, and I'm very excited for that. But the main issue with this division, though, is that there's always the question of who beats Hamza Chimaev. Like, when DDP was champion, it wasn't just the fact that DDP was way more active than Chimaev. It's also the fact that there were interesting matchups where it's like, oh, I don't know, man. It's hard to doubt DDP, but this guy looks like a killer. But after what Chimaev did to DDP, it's like, all right, who beats Chimaev? Chimaev looks too good right now, and I don't see anybody being competitive with this guy. And that's the main issue with this division, because Chimaev just stands out so much compared to the rest of the division. So for that reason, I have to put this at number 3. But maybe we're in for a surprise when Chimaev fights Sean Strickland. Although I highly doubt it, because I expect Chimaev to kind of make easy work of Sean Strickland. At number 2, I have the lightweight division. All right, because a lot has happened in this division throughout the first 4 months. To kick things off, we had Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett for the interim title. Then we watched Mauricio Rufy sleep out Rafael Fiziev in the second round. Then we watched Benoit Saint-Denis beat up on Dan Hooker in brutal fashion. Then we watched Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway. And then to top it all off, we watched Mateusz Gamrot, Fracek, another one of my favorite prospects. And there's also a lot of interesting matchups to look forward to here. But the main issue, however, is that Arman Tsarukyan is getting shafted. All right, Arman Tsarukyan should be the next guy who's fighting Ilya Taporia, but it's not just the fact that he's not getting the title shot. We don't know who he's gonna fight. He's basically fought everyone else. Him versus Charles Oliveira could be an interesting fight, although I don't know if the UFC is really interested in that anytime soon. So for the next couple of months, I don't see Arman Tsarukyan getting any sort of fight news, and that's kind of unfortunate. But overall, I would say that the lightweight division has been playing out very nicely, apart from the Arman Tsarukyan debacle, which is why I have it at number 2, because there's also a lot of matchups to look forward to, as well as the activity that has taken place throughout the first 4 months of this year. At number 1, I got the featherweight division. A lot has happened in this division throughout the first 4 months. We've watched Volkanovski fight Diego Lopez. We watched Movsar Evloev versus Leroy Murphy for the number 1 contenders fight. We watched John Silva versus Arnold Allen. And we even got a lot of prospect breakthroughs like Melquiz Acosta and Kevin Vallejos. And I do believe that even in the later half of this year, featherweight will continue to look good, because there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of killers, and I think the title picture is looking scrumptious. We have Movsar Evloev, who should be getting the next title shot realistically, even though I don't like him. I still want to see Evloev fight Volkanovski, because there's just something about the two best in the division fighting each other, which is kind of rare in nowadays. But either way, I think that featherweight is the best division right now so far in 2026. And I could argue that the featherweight division is the best division overall in the UFC. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can monetize this channel. But otherwise, leave any comments down below for video suggestions you have for me, as well as your opinions on every single division based on what we have been shown throughout the first 4 months of 2026. But yeah, other than that though, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.